What's up, everyone? This is Joseph with the Cardinal Rule with 5 Cardinals players that should either be cut or have their contracts restructured. These are players who going into the 2022 season have salary cap numbers that don't match their performance on the field. Now, for the purposes of this discussion, I am excluding players who are still on their rookie deals. So if you were hoping to hear Andy Isabella's name on this list, sorry to disappoint you, I'm not going to talk about him today. But instead, we're going to look at some veteran players who are on their second contract or thereafter, who have an unwieldy salary cap number going into this next season that makes it hard to justify keeping them on the roster at that current figure. The first player on this list is Jordan Hicks. Now, Hicks was a consummate professional this year. Coming out of the draft, Steve Keim had anointed Zaven Collins as the starter at inside linebacker, and word was that Hicks was told he would not have a chance to compete for that job. But despite Keim's public statements, Hicks earned the starting job and ended up being the starting Mike linebacker for the Cardinals this season. And he played reasonably well. But with first round pick Zaven Collins waiting in the wings to take that starting job, it just doesn't make sense to pay Hicks $9.5 million. It would be nice to keep Hicks around as a veteran leader and as a depth piece. But to justify that, the Cardinals are going to have to find a way to bring down his cap number. And to be honest, I don't know that Hicks would be willing to restructure yet again to stay with the Cardinals. I think the more likely outcome is they cut him and he goes somewhere else to try to find a starting job. The next player on my list is Justin Pugh. Now, Pugh has been a solid, consistent starter at the guard position for the Cardinals. He had only 2 penalties last year and has graded reasonably well per PFF. He's not elite, but he's a solid starter and the kind of guy you want on your roster. But that cap figure of $11.8 million is the kind of money you pay for a Pro Bowl guard. And as nice of a player as Pugh has been, he doesn't play at that level. And when you look at the savings of $9.8 million against a dead cap hit of only $2 million, this is a contract that it makes a lot of sense to either restructure or move on from. I can't imagine a scenario where the Cardinals keep Pugh on the roster in 2022 for an $11.8 million cap number. The third player on this list is someone that a lot of Cardinals fans have been down on, and understandably so, Jordan Phillips. Phillips signed as a free agent with the Cardinals 2 years ago, but in each of his 2 seasons with the Cardinals, he's only played 9 games and fewer than 300 snaps in each season. But there were points this last season when he was one of our better interior defensive linemen. But he has had trouble staying healthy, and his play just has not lived up to the level of his contract. Now, the tough part about the Jordan Phillips situation is that he has a massive dead cap hit of $9.2 million against only $4.1 million of cap savings if they cut him. They restructured him last season, and they might try to restructure him again. But the thing you have to remember is if you cut Phillips, you'll save $4.1 million, but there's $9.2 million of dead cap that you can't use this year. Now, if the Cardinals think they can use that $4.1 million to find a replacement for Phillips and another player who's going to fit another need, they might go ahead and do that. But because of how prohibitive that dead cap number is, it wouldn't shock me if he is still on the roster this upcoming season. The next player on this list is Devin Kennard, a player the Cardinals signed in the same offseason in which they signed Phillips. And like Phillips, Kennard hasn't lived up to expectations. He hasn't put up the kind of sack numbers that we hoped he would, but he has been good against the run, and he is a solid rotational player on that outside linebacker position. And considering the Cardinals might be moving on from Chandler Jones, Kennard might be the kind of player you want as a depth piece. But that $9.1 million salary cap number is problematic. His dead cap situation isn't quite as bad as that of Jordan Phillips, but there is a $4.2 million hit if they release him. Kennard seems like a player that's a prime candidate to have his contract restructured. The last player on this list is DJ Humphries. Now, Humphries is a tough one because he is, in my opinion, a solid left tackle. Now, he did have an off season. According to PFF, in 2020, Humphries was the 4th highest graded tackle with a grade of 88.3. But in 2021, his grade slipped to 67.5, which ranked 47th amongst tackles. Humphries had 11 penalties this year, which was the second worst mark of his career. But despite those struggles, he still is a solid tackle in my opinion, and he's someone who wouldn't be easy to replace. But that cap number of $19.3 million needs to come down. And when you see that there's $15 million in cap space that could be saved by cutting Humphries against $4.3 million in dead cap hit, it reinforces the idea that the Cardinals need to do something about this contract. I think that the most likely outcome in the Humphries situation is that the Cardinals actually sign him to an extension that pushes his cap number down the road and clears up some cap space this season. So what do you think the Cardinals are going to do about these contracts? Are there any other players on the roster you think they're going to cut or try to restructure their contract in order to make some cap room? Let me know in the comments below. Also, while you're there, please do me a favor and click like on this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Cardinal Rule.